is Unit 4, Part 1 of the immune system. So today we're going to be just looking at some basic ideas concerning the immune system, and tomorrow we'll be looking at more specific things. So before we begin talking about the immune system, we have to address this issue of glycolipids, glycoproteins, and the extracellular matrix. A glycolipid or glycoprotein is a protein or a lipid that has been modified to contain a carbohydrate of some kind. And these structures, these glycolipids and glycoproteins, are on the extracellular matrix, and this is how one cell recognizes another cell, whether that be your own cells recognizing each other or your own cells recognizing, say, a bacteria that is foreign and should be dealt with, or a virus even that isn't a cell at all. And so these structures are how the immune system works. The immune system basically sorts out what is you and what is not you. And so some parts of the immune system specifically target things that are new to the immune system. So like a specific thing, whereas there's an enemy that is specific and we're going to have a specific defense against this enemy. And then some parts of the immune system just target everything and they attempt to catch everything that's not you. And so we're going to differentiate between the non-specific immune system and the specific immune system. And that brings us to the idea of innate immunity or non-specific immunity. And this is immunity that you're born with. This is immunity that does not target a specific thing, but targets anything that's not you. And so again, immunity that you're born with. This helps against most things that we would come in contact with that aren't us, and against organisms, against environmental hazards. This includes our skin, our mucous membranes. These are the first line of defense. Sweat is another example. Sweat has a pH of 3 or 3 to 5, depending on the type of sweat it is, and so that sweat can kill some things. You have bacteria in your gut, like in your intestines and in your stomach, and these bacteria also help in the process of fighting against other things, and they help your digestive tract to work better. You have enzymes in your tears and your saliva in your stomach that also can break down organisms and act as antibiotics in some ways. And so there's some basic innate immunities. There are also cells that all of us have that are called phagocytes, and phagocytes are large cells that eat other cells. And when I say eat other cells, it's anything that the phagocyte does not recognize as you. It basically gobbles it up and deals with it later. And so one type of phagocyte that we're going to be looking at primarily is called the macrophage. Macro means large, and so these macrophages, they go around, they eat other things, and it could be pathogens, could be viruses. They break those viruses down using the lysosomes inside of them. And so that is an important line of defense. There are other types of phagocytes that we're not going to go into. Another type of non-specific immune response is called the inflammatory response. And the inflammatory response has to do with when you come in contact with a pathogen of some kind, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a pathogen. It could just be some sort of injury to the cells or to the tissue. And I mean, as I say, it doesn't have to be a pathogen, but anything that's could cause a problem is considered a pathogen. And so here you have this picture of a pin that has broken the skin. There are bacteria on that pin. And so at this point, the macrophages are here, and the damaged cells are going to send out a chemical called histamine. And histamine is going to call in the macrophages and these other phagocytic type cells, and they're going to be drawn to this area, and they are going to just eat all of those bacteria. This is going to cause, that histamine causes the area and that has been damaged to be red, and it's redness because the blood is all the veins and arteries close in that area, trapping the blood in that location, and so that causes swelling. It can be painful, can cause heat, and again, all of these are associated with this inflammatory response, and we know this if you've ever been stung by a bee or stepped on something sharp or whatever, and it's caused this sort of reaction. And then sometimes you can have this happen like in your sinuses, like you breathe in pollen, your body receives that pollen and thinks that it's just extra bad, and this causes your sinuses to inflame and swell up. And this is for people who have allergies in particular, struggle with this. And so this inflammatory response, again, is nonspecific. It doesn't target a specific thing. This happens anytime or anywhere there is injury. So a couple other things that I don't have pictures for real quick are pyrogens and interferons. A couple of things about pyrogens and interferons. Pyrogens literally means to generate fire, and so these are proteins that are produced by white blood cells that cause the body temperature to increase, which is what we know as a fever. This is to get rid of bacteria, get rid of viruses, and so a fever can be sometimes induced to basically melt the invading pathogens in the hopes of keeping your own body tissue safe. You can have fevers that can be too high and can actually destroy your own body temperatures, and so we can control our fever with certain medicines. Interferons are chemicals that are released from damaged, invaded cells that are used to warn other cells. And so sometimes these are associated with viruses quite a bit, and the interferons basically allow the other cells to increase their defenses in order to save themselves. And so interferons are used as another type of non-specific defense. With plants, normally times we don't think about plants defending themselves, but they very much do. They have some defenses also. Thorns are one type of defense they have, obviously against herbivory. Thorns keep animals from eating their leaves, and so the thorns are there to protect them. They also have cork on the outside. Cork is just dead plant material, and that protects the plants from being rubbed against by other animals that like to rub on trees and can hurt the trees. Some plants actually produce attractants that when the plant is being damaged, say in this picture the plant is being damaged by a caterpillar, that causes the plant to release a predatory attractant. The wasp smells this stuff and says, that smells good, and wants to come, and it sees this worm, and the wasp lays its eggs in the worm, and those eggs develop inside the worm until they one time decide to eat their way out of the worm, thus completing their own life cycle and protecting the plant at the same time. And so that's it on non-specific defenses. Let's talk about a little bit about specific defenses before the next video. Here are two molecules called MHCs, or major histocompatibility complexes. Nice, big, pithy word. Histocompatibility complexes. And there are two types. There are class 1 major histocompatibility, or MHCs, and class 2 MHCs. The class 1 MHCs are these proteins that present a portion of the pathogen that has infected them. So class 1 MHCs are produced by infected cells, and this portion of the pathogen, we'll talk more about this later, is called an antigen. It presents this antigen to the immune system and says, this is what is invading me, come deal with it. And so what the basically what the white blood cell will then come do is it will know to kill that infected cell in order to keep the pathogen from spreading. And the MHC class 2 are actually presented by macrophages. And the class 2 will show the immune system, hey, this is what I just killed. Now you need to go and form a plan against this particular pathogen. So it shows the antigen, and the helper T cell comes and reads it, and then the helper T cell initiates the specific immune response, which we'll talk about in the next video.